Shabbat Shalom. This is a very special Shabbat because it's a holiday. It's like the week before my daughter's bat mitzvah, so it's a very special Shabbat. No. This is a very special Shabbat because we are here to thank God for all of the spiritual and wonderful moments that help to build, to give life, and to sustain this incredible congregation. You know, when I was interviewing here, part of the process, one of the meetings, among many meetings, that I had, was a meeting with Rabbi Baumgart, alav shalom. And I went into his office, which used to be on the clergy wing where our offices are. And I sat down with Rabbi Baumgart, and I was sort of in awe, because I have heard of him for many, many years, but I never actually had a chance to meet him. And we sat down and looked at all the pictures on the wall of him with people like Yitzhak Rabin and Shimon Peres and really incredible people. And he said to me, "You know, I have no vote. I have no say in what happens with you." I said, "Okay." So I got up and I walked out. No. Rabbi Baumgart, alav shalom, said to me, "We have done incredible things in this place. This congregation has done incredible things in this place." And then he looked right at me and he said, "That doesn't mean there aren't incredible things that need to still happen." It was an amazing concept for me, and little did I know that in that moment, the past and the future of Temple Beth Am were beginning to try to reconcile where Beth Am has come from and where it can go. Tonight, I think, not only are we paying homage to where Temple Beth Am comes from, where it came from, and how it was built, but the essence of what it means when you say Temple Beth Am. So it's an extraordinary celebration of our past, our present, and of course our future as well, as we join together in this very holy space. We share Shabbat together with many of our past presidents who you will hear from tonight, but also with Louis Leibowitz, who will be called to the Torah for the first time as a bar mitzvah this weekend. And so we'd like to invite now Louis, along with his parents Stacy and David, in honor of Louis's bar mitzvah, along with Susan Lampin, Lily Serviansky, Dee Citron, and our current president, Daniela Zanzuri Minor, for the honor of kindling our Shabbat lights. as we join with Louis as we sanctify the Shabbat as holy with our Shabbat Kiddush, we invite to join Louis Bill Silver, Bob Barron, Howard Wolowski, Joe Jacoby, and Bobby Schatzman.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kisham mitzvotav v'ratzav banu b'shabbat kadshu ve'avahu ratzon hinchilanu tikanu lema'aseh v'reishit tihu yom tefillah.
Louis is not only well trained for his bar mitzvah this weekend, but he's also the first bar mitzvah boy in history who's not only in charge of the Kiddush and candles, but he's in charge of the screen during this service as well. So we're very thankful to Louis for his versatility. Tonight, we would like to share, as we pray together and as we celebrate Shabbat together, some vignettes from our past presidents and synagogue leaders. We invited both Susan Lampin and Richard Hoffman to coordinate tonight's service, and we are so very thankful to both of them. Richard could not be here with us tonight, but Susan, thank God, is with us, and so we'd like to invite Susan now to join us.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good evening. Well, I'm Susan, and Richard would have loved to have been here this evening to welcome all of you, along with our clergy, to this final Shabbat service, recognizing all of the religious life cycle and social events that have taken place within these sacred walls. Here, our collective lives have been forever impacted as a result of our memberhood at Temple Beth Am. Tonight, we invite each of you to participate in an experiential way throughout this service. Please join in as we honor and stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. It is our turn to create our own memories to support and help build for next generations that will follow in our footsteps. Hold your experiences in this space near and dear in your minds, hearts, and souls as you create a tell of memories by layering your significant spiritual events with new ones as we continue to build toward the future of our temple. We ask you to stand during moments that are important to you as several of our past presidents recount a relevant memory. Later, during our festive oneg, there will be an opportunity to write down a memory or wish that you would want to see carried into the future. We will place these messages into a time capsule for future generations to uncover at the appropriate time on our campus. I would like now to ask Lily, our past president, to formally introduce our other past presidents and contribute a few of her own words. Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom. Past presidents here tonight, in sitting order: Joe Jacoby, Bobby Schatzman, Bill Silver, B. Citron, Bob Barron, Howard Bulowski, and our current president, Daniela Zanzuri. It looks like a woman, but there's more past presidents that are women. They just are not here today. We come here tonight to say goodbye to this space. The walls, this stage, who used to be our bima, to the chairs, to the most expensive air conditioner with 2 settings, off or freezing. We each have our own special memories of this space. We will carry those with us. But in truth, none of those memories would exist if it not for the dream, the drive and the vision of our founding rabbi, Rabbi Herbert Baumgart, his wife Selma, and the leadership of that time. This temple would not have existed but for them. We wouldn't be here tonight but for him. Tonight, it is especially important to remember him and his legacy and say his name out loud. Rabbi Herbert Baumgart, blessed memory. Those of you who knew him, please include him in your thoughts and your prayers. I knew him. I was proud to know him. He would have been proud and happy because for him, sustaining and growing Jewish life was at the core of his existence and his beliefs, the reason to build this space. It is the same reason we are decommissioning this building to create new spaces, to sustain our community, and to celebrate Jewish life for today and for the future. To her, to life, Ledor Vador.
If you turn to your program, in this house we join together in singing in this house.
Together in this house. My name is Bill Silver, and I was honored to be the president of this congregation from 1979 to 1981. To help you put that into perspective, the United States president at the time was Jimmy Carter, and he was followed by Ronald Reagan. Gasoline was 91 cents a gallon, and the interest rate was around 11%. Our senior rabbi was Herbert Baumgart, and his good friend David Stewart was our executive director. And Joan Schwartzman, who knew everybody's name, every member by name and reputation, was our administrator. A temple that had started with 50 families had grown to over 1,500 members, and we joined the UAHC, which is now the URJ, as an established Reformed congregation. The temple's silver anniversary was celebrated in black tie style with President Silver at the helm. We hired our first associate rabbi, Rabbi Stuart Weinblatt, who served for 2 years during my term. Now, during my term, the day school was formed and served as one of only 2 Reformed day schools in the country. Sim Lesser headed the program, and she soon passed the baton to Seal Coonan, Sandy Kramer, and Lenore, now Dr. Lenore Kinnell. Our Havarah program was initiated by Rabbi Mitchell Sheffids, who served as an associate rabbi here for 5 years. We started a concert series led by Doreen Marks. We had a speaker series that hosted Bill Buckley and many others. And the president of the UAAC, Rabbi Alex Schindler, spoke to us from this very bima. And after faithfully serving for 29 years as our senior rabbi, Herbert Baumgard retired in 1987. So as Susan said, tonight is looking back at the time and the years that our community has lived within these walls. I would ask you to turn around, but you can't turn around right now because you can't see what's behind you. If you were to turn around and look back into the gym, imagine that. Across the floor, and remember when there was a stage at the south end of that building. Because in fact, this synagogue where we are now is actually the second synagogue built for this congregation. The first synagogue was actually the space that is now the gym. And the Holy Ark that is now in the lobby of our present sanctuary was all the way down at the end of that building, and we prayed facing south. For many years before this building was built by Joe Solomon and others, it was then we started praying to the north, for reasons that we just don't have time to get into. So if you've come here this evening to renew and recapture your memories made in either of these buildings, and those memories relate to your life cycle events, including Ufra, weddings, Brit Milah, baby naming, day school programs or graduation, the honoring of day school teachers, preschool programs or graduation, the honoring of preschool teachers, confirmation ceremonies, Beth Am Americans, or any of the many singing groups. Please take a moment to recall those experiences so that you can take them with you as we move forward as a community together. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. When we thought about what music to bring to our prayer service this evening, you know, we have many different ways to sing Lachadodi. We could spend the next 45 minutes just singing Lachadodi. We could spend 15 minutes just singing Baruch Hu. We could spend an hour or more just singing Adon Olam. You'll have to wait to see which one we've chosen. But for the Baruch Hu, certainly there is one melody which rose above the rest for us, and that is the one composed by our own Cantor Nelson. So we continue on page 28, and we rise for the Baruch Hu.
Bye.
the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Amari Paravi. Page 32. Takes the Torah to our heart for the very first time, and Louis has been studying Torah all through his 13 years. You may be seated, and he will continue with leading us in the Ve'ahavta. Page 36.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי
you as we hear some words from Bob Barron.
First of all, Bill, I know I didn't have to do anything after listening to you and at what you accomplished. I just sat around as president. We didn't have to do much at all because he did it all during his term. Impressive. So, my name is Bob Barron. I served as president of this congregation from 1991 to 1993. To put it into perspective, George Bush 41 was the president, and Operation Desert Storm was launched after Iraq invaded Kuwait, and America and 34 other nations went to war against Saddam Hussein. Our senior rabbi at the time was Rabbi Jonathan Kendall. Actually, the street was already named Kendall. And my executive vice president at the time was my good friend Mel Rappaport. For many, this sanctuary is where our most important life events have taken place. Like many of you, my family has a long history here at Temple Beth Am. From the years of my parents, Ray and Roz Barron, I want to acknowledge Roz is here. She's at the young age of 95. They were founding members of this temple and served in leadership roles in this Jewish community. This is where I became a bar mitzvah, on this very bima, which I know is the second bima because my brother was bar mitzvah on the other one. And I'm going to be forever known as the president who finally was able to replace the original carpeting in this very sanctuary. It was very much in need of replacing at the time because, to tell you a little story, the reason I will be forever known for replacing the carpet was because I stood up on this very bima on a Shabbat in November 1992, which was less than 2 months after Hurricane Andrew struck this community. And believe it or not, the same old carpet survived. And when I say the same old carpet, because as I got up and spoke to my eldest daughter, Risa, as she was bat mitzvahed on that day in 1992, I pointed out to her that I was bar mitzvahed on that very same carpet 28 years before. And I don't think I was the first one that was bar mitzvahed on that same carpet. So when I finished my presidency of this synagogue approximately 6 months later, I was presented with a piece of that very carpet, which had finally been replaced. And one last time I want to point out to you, I brought a prop. This was presented to me as I completed my presidency. A certificate of authenticity upon this original carpet. 1964, Bob Barron became a bar mitzvah. 1991, Bob Barron was installed as president of Temple Beth Am. This was presented by the board of directors of Temple Beth Am in 1991. Look at this, after 30 years, look how nice this carpet is. That is only one of the many wonderful memories that I want to take with me as we, as a community, retire this space to make room for our future and for the families who will follow us to make this synagogue their spiritual home and their extended family. So if your chosen memory this evening involves any of these life cycle events, please rise as you choose to remember a particular high holiday, or many of the amazing and fulfilling high holiday services that we have shared in this space, or a preschool, a day school, or religious school graduation. Any of the thousands of children's bar and bat mitzvah ceremonies, or adult b'nai mitzvahs that have been celebrated on this bima and in the adjoining social hall throughout the years. And of course, the weddings. This room has held so many of the wedding ceremonies of our members, as well as their children and their grandchildren, many of whom have also become members of this congregation. Sorry. again, please rise if you choose to remember any of these events and to recall the people, the moments, and the meaningful and long-lasting memories which were so much a part of your life here in this space at Temple Beth Am throughout the years. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. We turn to page 40 for Micha Mocha. Page 43. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukkot shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, va'al Yerushalayim. Blessed are you, Adonai, who spreads your shelter of peace over your people Israel and over Jerusalem. We join together in Hashkivenu. We welcome Andrea Levine, our program director, page 42.
Shabbat Shalom. I am B. Citrin, and I was honored to serve as your president from 2001 to 2003. I also had a bat mitzvah on this very bima as an adult, thanks to Lenore Kipper, and I will always cherish that moment. So, when I served as president, I had two executive vice presidents, each one wonderful. One was Richard Hoffman, and the second was Jody Hessel, who became president after I did. The most memorable national event of my presidency was the downing of the Twin Towers in New York, United Flight 175, and the attack on the Pentagon on September 11, 2001. I was in a regular Tuesday morning meeting with Rabbi Bookman and Richard Hoffman, right back there in an office that is now a lunchroom. Aida Littauer and Claudia Goodman ran in to tell us that a plane had just flown into the World Trade Center. A few minutes later, they announced the second strike. Within minutes, this campus was overwhelmed with parents arriving to collect their children and take them someplace safe. Our world was turned upside down for a while. But we survived, and our congregation continued to thrive. And always looking to the future, we launched a capital campaign that was designed to raise the unheard of sum of $21 million. People thought we were nuts, and we were, but we believed. We pushed forward, we raised the funds, we made peace with our neighbors, we hired an architect and began to renovate this side of the campus and to create new holy space, our current sanctuary, social hall, and administrative building that will continue to serve our congregation for many years to come. Just as an aside, I'm sure many of you will remember the old youth building, the sloped roof structure that served us well for dances and lunchrooms and wonderful school programming, open space that provided room for Jews to come together and do whatever we Jews do. That building was torn down so that our new sanctuary could be built in that spot. That too was a good building that served its purpose very well. So, if you have come here this evening to revive and recapture your memories made in this space, I know I have, or any of the buildings that have graced this campus, and served our community so well throughout the years, know that it is not the bricks and mortar that are important. It is our community, our relationships, and the memories we create along that way that are what was always supposed to remain. If your chosen memory involves any of these life cycle events, I will ask you to rise and reflect. Anniversaries, concerts, children's theater, BAFTI or NIFTY happenings, community theater, film festivals, the Wednesday Night Institute of Jewish Studies. Please rise, capture your moments, and remember. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Stay standing. We stay standing as we turn to page 46 for the tefillah.
Adonai,
Kiddushat Hayom, the prayer for the holiness of this day. If you were here a long time, you'll remember the many different Sidurim, or probably in the early days, prayer books from the Union Prayer Book to Gates of Prayer, to Nisiyat HaNefesh, to Mishkan Tefillah, and there may have been other prayer books as well, as we join together at the foot of the page. Our God and God of our ancestors, be pleased with our rest. Sanctify us with your mitzvot, and grant us a share in your Torah. Satisfy us with your goodness, and gladden us with your salvation. Purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Adonai our God, grant as our heritage your holy Shabbat, that Israel, who sanctifies your name, may rest on it. Praise to you, Adonai, who sanctifies Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-Shabbat. And offering his words of sanctification on this Shabbat, we invite Howard Wolofsky.
I've been a member of this temple since my parents moved from Montreal in 1968. My mother Sabina and father Sidney wanted their children to be a part of a Jewish community. They came to Temple Beth Am, saw what was offered, joined, and from that day on, I have called Temple Beth Am home. My president started after Bobby Schatzman, who served from 2005 to 2007. My term was 07 to 09, and my executive vice president was Richard Hoffman, who would have loved to have been here tonight and who really took an enormous amount of time to help prepare all of our thoughts and stories so it's cohesive and wonderful. So thank you, Richard. We miss you. My presidency was the Protect This House years. George W. Bush was president. Terry Bookman was our rabbi. Bob Hirsch was just hired to be our executive director. And by the way, we're going to be honoring him at a service of all of our communities, September 19th, with a farewell celebration. And he's certainly a man deserving to be celebrated. He's done so much for us in so many meaningful ways. The capital campaign, which was started under B and enhanced during Bobby's years, had progressed. Frank Hessel and I had already put our personal lives on hold for several years to oversee the renovation of this building, the library, the famed classroom building, the Mark Light building, and of course, construction of the sanctuary complex, which will remain on the site going forward. Once the buildings were substantially complete, I stepped down from my involvement in the construction committee to serve as this community's president. I branded that effort under the Protect This House slogan as a rallying cry for this community to support our beloved synagogue. I was and still remain very grateful for the honor of serving this congregation. Countless memories for me and my family have been created and fostered within these walls. Memories that were created over more than 50 years of membership. But there are many here who have been a part of this great community even longer. And that tonight is designed and intended to encourage each of us to take the moment to stand our memories in the space. It's a redundant theme, but important things are meant to be repeated and memorialized, and that's why we ask you so many times tonight to stand. I know for me, reading this before, till I got here and sat here and thought of confirmation and bar mitzvah on this bima, saying goodbye to my parents on this bima, it's worth repeating and remembering, because the memories within these walls should never be forgotten, because it served us all so beautifully. So together, let's all have another moment to stand, and I'll leave you with your reflection of what that special moment was for you. Hopefully it was a joyous one, but know that no matter what, your community was with you.
Howard brought us from sanctification to marking holy moments such as Shabbat, to prayers of thankfulness and thanksgiving. We continue as we sing another Cantor Nelson's compositions, Modim, page 58. You may be seated. For prayers of thanksgiving, we turn to prayers of peace. And we join together at the top of page 61. So we are taking memories with us, and certainly for so many of us, this rendering of a prayer for peace has been etched in our memories. We pray together at the top of the page. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamevarech et amo Yisrael v'shalom. We join together in singing our prayer for peace. Shalom Rav, page 60. Evening of memory and evening of holiness of this space, the holiness really of community. Because how would these moments be holy if we hadn't shared them with people who are important to us, people that mean something to us, raising children in a day school, sharing happy and joyous times of weddings and b'nai mitzvah. These are what make these memories so meaningful. I would spend years running from Bet Brera over here to another child's bar bat mitzvah and running into the sanctuary just in time to hear Cantor Nelson sit on the steps and put her arm around the child and sing them a song. You know, she sat down low on the steps, for some of you who remember. But what we remember, fuzzy the decorations may be, but we remember the way we felt within this space. So now as we take the time for our silent meditation, we remember not only the place and the walls, but we remember the feelings. We hold on to those feelings as we take time to connect with the Eternal One, as we offer our thanks we are inspired by the messages of Shabbat. We pause for our silent prayer.
Roots are very important. Roots in the Jewish community are something that are very special. And I don't have roots here. I have roots in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, at Temple Israel, where my grandfather was the rabbi for 3 decades, where my father and uncles had their B'nai Mitzvah, where my brother and I had our B'nai Mitzvah, where my brother was married. My brother and I, we would wait on Saturday mornings and put our ears by our parents' bedroom door at about 9 o'clock in the morning. And if there was movement, it meant that we were going to shul. And we were very disappointed. And if it was quiet, we knew we weren't going, then we could go back to watching TV or doing whatever it is that we used to do. We were very little. And the conservative service that we went to was very long. And so we were happy to miss it. It was not the most spiritual period of my life. But I remember, I have these memories of going to shul every week. When I got to my first job in Charlotte, North Carolina, I remember walking in for one of the very first board meetings when I was there. And I walked in the social hall where we had the meeting at the same time as 2 other people. One was a young high school student who was the president of the Temple Youth Group, and the other was an older man who had been named the lifetime president of the Temple and had been the past president of the Temple maybe 2 decades earlier. And as we walked in, the 3 of us together, he said to her, to this young high school student, you know, how's your family doing? How's your dad? How's everything going? And right then and there, and this is a memory that's still clear to me to this day, right then and there I knew this was not my community. Nobody here is going to ask me about my family. Nobody here knows my family or really cares about where I came from. And ever since then, that was in 2002, ever since then I've been chasing community, trying to find roots. And I've been to a few different places. This is my 3rd stop professionally, and here too I have no roots, I have no history. There was an article in the most recent commentary you may have read, an excellent, well-written article written by me, talking about how her bat mitzvah next week. My only prayer is that she'll look out and feel like this is home, that we do belong here. But she, for the most part, has grown up here, whereas I grew up in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. And the names that I know and the faces that I see and the emotion that I have for a sanctuary aren't in this room like so many of you. But I know how you feel. I've only been back a couple of times to Pennsylvania. I don't go very often to the synagogue that I grew up in. I've only been there maybe 3 or 4 times in the last 20 years. But the last time I was there, I noticed some things were different. They took out a lot of the seats, because the synagogue, when my grandfather was there, was about 900 families. And now it's less than 200. And they don't need as many seats in this grand sanctuary that they used to have. And my first feeling was, how could they do that? They made it different than it was when my grandfather was here. And the truth is, the sanctuary that was built for when my grandfather was there doesn't meet their needs. But I went up and I stood on the bima, and I stood behind the same podium where my grandfather used to stand. I remember these huge boxes of Luden's cough drops that he used to keep underneath, and I would always come and try and eat them. He would invite me up usually at the end of the service for the last couple songs of Musaf to sit next to him. I don't have any emotion in this room other than watching my children in a few Temple Beth Am Day School plays. And I know that it doesn't really matter as a Jew halachically. When I say halachically, I mean in its very literal book form sense, whether we pray in this room or that room or down the street. In terms of Jewish legality, it makes no difference. We can pray anywhere where we can put a critical mass of Jews together for that purpose. Legally, it doesn't matter. But emotionally, that's something totally different. I know what it's like to have that emotion because I have that emotion for a place that's not this. But your prayer is, you hope, as a Jew, that every Jew should have a place where they grew up and that they have ties. I want to tell you about something very interesting, because what we're really talking about here is not just our past, but how we as Jews link together one generation to the next. What is our commitment as Jews and members of Temple Beth Am today to all those who have come before us, and equally to all those Jews who will come after us in this holy place? In the Torah portion of Shalach Lecha, which was actually my bar mitzvah Torah portion, we'll get to in a few weeks when we make our way into the book of Numbers. The Jewish people commit a terrible sin. Even worse than the sin of the golden calf, they commit what's called the Chet HaMeraglim, the sin of the spies, in which 12 spies, one from each tribe, go into the land of Israel, come back, and report to Moses and the Jewish people, 10 of the 12, we cannot conquer the people who are living there, and we don't think that it's worthwhile for us Jews to go into the land of Israel. To which God responds, if that's the way you think, if you don't have faith that we can move forward and go into the land of Israel, then you won't go forward into the land of Israel. And you will wander for the next 40 years and die out in the wilderness. And only the next generation will go into the land of Israel. So that's the scenario, and it's a devastating piece of information that we learn each year when we read the Torah portion in Shalach Lecha. But what happens after that is mysterious, it's unusual, and it puzzles the rabbis. What happens? Immediately after the Jewish people are told that they're not going into the land of Israel, the Torah says, Ki tavo'u be'eretz Yisrael. When you enter into the land of Israel, here are some some mitzvahs that you'll have to follow. Think about the logic. You're not going into the land of Israel. Oh, but when you do these mitzvahs. So the rabbis say, why in the world would the Torah follow up this harsh decree that you're not going into the land of Israel with a couple of mitzvahs that you can only do when you get to the land of Israel? There are a variety of rabbis who comment on this, but one of the most interesting is the Or Chaim HaKadosh. The Or Chaim, who lived in the 13th century from Morocco, eventually made his way to Israel. In fact, if you've ever been in the Jewish quarter of Jerusalem, you may have walked past the synagogue that he founded there, which is still there, in the Jewish quarter. And the Or Chaim said this. He said, why did God tell the Jewish people that these are mitzvahs you should do when you get to the land of Israel, when you're not going to get there? Because what he was really saying is, you're not going to get there, but your children will. You're not ever going to be there, but because your children are going to be there, that is the same thing as you being there. It's the reiteration of what the Jewish people said at Mount Sinai. When God said to the Jewish people, do you accept this Torah? They said, not only do we accept this Torah for ourselves, but we accept this for all the Jews who aren't able to be here. Not just the ones who are going to come into the future, but the ones who came before us as well. And so what the Or Chaim HaKadosh teaches us, and what the Torah is trying to explain to us, is that when something happens to one of our generations, it happens to all of our generations. So I think, when we think about this connection between us and the Jews who came before us, and us and the Jews who are coming after us, we are here tonight based on the emotion, the love, and the connection that we've had to ourselves, our families, our own selves, and to all those Jews who have come before us in this place for a long, long time. Some of the vignettes that we heard from the past presidents occurred, I don't want to tell you what I was doing during some of those periods. Basically, I was waiting outside my parents' door, hoping that I didn't have to go to shul that Shabbos. That's our connection to the people who've come before us. But if we want to truly grow, if we want to fulfill the visions that Rabbi Baumgard, Alav Shalom, used to have for this congregation, if we want to live up to the emotion and the experience of the congregants who filled the rosters of this place, who built all of these incredible buildings that we now enjoy, then not only do we connect to the emotion of the past, but this is the key. We bring their spirit with us going into the future. And so God told the Jewish people in the land of Israel, first something harsh. You will not go into the land of Israel. But then he brought them what our tradition calls nechama. He brought them comfort by saying, though you will only go so far, when your children go forward, that means you're going forward too. Tonight, let us encapsulate the spirit of what was, from the very beginning days of Temple Beth Am, what has always been, to make us today the fastest growing Reformed congregation in the entire country. Let us gather in all of that spirit, all of that emotion, all of that history, all of those life cycle events that were with us at every single milestone and turn of our life. And let us bequeath that to all those who are coming after us, so that in our vision, they may also produce vision. Katie Hiratzon. May this be God's will. Amen.
forth for the next generation, it is my privilege to invite Jody Orshan, a special guest soloist this evening, to lead us in singing Lechilach. As God called us to go forward, we too commit ourselves to going forward. Jody, beautiful. We invite Daniela Zanzuri-Biner, our current president, to share her words with us on this Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Like so many of us this evening, I didn't expect to get emotional tonight either, but I have. My sons were bar mitzvahed here. I've stood up for every occasion that was mentioned, and so I'm also a little verklempt. This space has been our spiritual home for nearly 50 years. In this sacred space, we lived our lives, joined in song and celebration, wept in sadness and sorrow, and tried, each in our own way, to find relationship with one another and our relationship with God. To all things, there's a season. These buildings have served our community well, and it is time to retire them. It is a new season, a time to build anew. In crafting this final Shabbat service for this space, it was the hope and intention of our clergy and lay leaders to frame the service around your memories so that you will come to know that those are what's important to take with us as we build for our future. Just as others built this space for us in our generation, it is now time for us to do the same for those yet to come. Rabbi Barris, Rabbi Aklepi, Yvonne, Ricky, Deanna Whitman, Andrea Levine, Dr. Kipper, Neil Littauer, Jody Orshan, we thank you for working to create a very meaningful and uplifting service. The music was special, as were the special prayers, and of course, thank you, Rabbi Barris, for that insightful Devar Torah. To the past presidents who are here, and to all the past presidents who have represented congregations who have come through these doors to worship, thank you for your service, both as president and as past presidents, a position that I look forward to holding starting a few weeks from now. I have been told that the best job in temple leadership is that of immediate past president. Susan Lampton, Richard Hoffman, our thanks to both of you for taking your time and giving from your hearts to make this evening so spiritual. As we take our memories with us down the road toward our communal home, we may not know all the twists and turns that our travels may take, but we do know that our spirits are high, our resolve is resolute, our future is brightly coming toward us, and it is just beyond the curve.
Thank you, Danielle. One of the things we share as a community are the names of our loved ones who need our prayers and our good wishes for healing. So if you are thinking of loved ones at this time who would benefit from our prayers, please, we're going to do something a little different this evening. We're going to call out our loved ones' names all at once. So you don't have to yell, you can say their names, and we will then join in singing a Mishaberach together. So we ask God, before we call our names, to grant compassion and wisdom to the physicians and caregivers who are caring for our loved ones. We ask God to give perseverance and fortitude to those whom we love, who are fighting addictions and standing up to abuse. To all those who need our prayers, we say, Na el narafana la, na el narafana lo, heal them, O God, and may they be healed. We ask for the names. Social Justice Shabbat. Well, we are in the period of counting the Omer from the days of Pesach until Shavuot. So we have a special blessing and counting of the Omer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sefirat haomer. And Hayom Arba Asar Yom Shehem Shnei Shavuot La Omer. Today is 14 days, which is 2 weeks of the Omer. We continue on page 282 as we rise for the elation.
Alleluia,
Tonight we send condolences to the family of Menia Perlman. And we say Kaddish tonight for a past president, Evelyn Goodman, who passed away this week in Pensacola. We remember her contributions to this congregation, her work on behalf of all of us, and for the Jewish future, which we're all hopefully a part of for our good deeds here. We say Kaddish tonight for Susan Ruiz and Goldie Moskowitz. We ask those, if you are remembering someone this evening, to stand when you hear their name and continue standing through Kaddish. In the tradition of 30 days of mourning, we remember Lola Cohen, Audrey Brownstein, Jonathan Strongen, Bernice Haller, Leon Coughlin, Yvette Judith Sachs, Orrin Wexberg. We remember those who died during this past year: Shirley Berman, Arlene Berger, Donald Don Bleeker, Elaine Cohen, Daniel Freund, Dr. Stanley Glass, Helene Goodman, Sandy Greenberg, L. Melvin Katz, Paula Kelfer, Jay Kislak, Barbara Kraus, Lorraine Lefkowitz, Audrey Lissack, Jane Loper, Harold Lowenstein, Lois Marks, Mitch Pasternak, Diane Carol Resnick, Andrea Rosenstein, Milton Safran, Kriel Schmalbach, Bernard Switchko, Joseph Tannenbaum, Michael Wasserman, Mildred Weiss, Charles Buddy Zentner. We commemorate the yard sites of our loved ones: Stephen Bellin, Robert Belitsky, Frank Benedict, Sheldon Bernstein, Vera Braverman, Max Carlin, Dr. Richard E. Deutsch, Richard Fialko, Eric Daniel Fishbein, Samuel Fletcher, Milton Forster, Milton Friedlander, Michelle Frilly, Sarah Gassman, Yetta Gassworth, Wayne Richard Geiger, Sig M. Gluckstad, Francis Goldberg, Francis Goodman, Molly Grapen, Louis Guberman, Ida Hollub, Julius Jacobs, Erwin Robert Katz, Rose Kramer, Adele Helen Kutz Miller, Sidney Leibowitz, Samuel Lemlick, Florence Lowenstein, Harry Margoleski, Moses Markowitz, Malcolm F. Marks, Mark David Marshall, Ruth Mazer, Ralph Myers, Estelle Merkin, Phyllis Morici, Meyer Abraham Pass, William Preiser, Gussie Rosenbaum, Karen Rossman, Nan Rubinson, Sylvia Salzberg, Abe Savitz, Sylvia Savitz, Molly Schneider, Frida Schrenzel, Edward Schulman, Fred Shapiro, Harry Silver, Jakob Smilovitz, Nettie Taylor, Gladys Traeger, Sybil Williams, Fred Wilner, Edward Zucker. Are there others observing a yahrzeit this evening? Thank you. Thank you. We join together as one community. We turn to page 294 as we join in the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgedal v'yitgedash shemei rabbav, v'yalmad yivrat v'yurtei v'yamlit malchutei, v'chai yivon v'yomei chom, v'chayei b'o beit Yisrael, v'alav b'zman karim v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei rabbav v'barak v'olam v'olei omayah, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitfa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei descend on us, on all Israel, and all the world. Together we say, Amen. You may stay standing as we invite Bill Sussman and Larry Schwartz to the bima to help lead us in Adon Olam, which is found on page 321. Now, if you look at your special program tonight in the Beth Am Singers, you can maybe find a picture of Larry there. If you in the Oneg, following in the gym, find Larry and he'll point himself out to you. So we join together, everybody, as this song we picked an oldie but a goodie.